I'm Chris from Eurogamer. Thank you so much for coming at 5 p.m. on a Friday. You guys could be playing games right now. Please don't go and play games right now. This is a live version of the Eurogamer Podcast, which is a thing we do every 2 weeks. It's usually about video games. If you like what we do, then you can go find it on iTunes or wherever podcasts tend to happen. And without that out the way, I'm going to introduce the nice people sitting next to me. So we've got, all the way from Rock, Paper, Shotgun, it's Philippa Warr.
Hello.
Editor-in-Chief, boss man, Oli Welsh.
Hello.
And the person that you just heard on that really enthusiastic Hype EGX video is Philippa Wilson.
Hi.
So I thought, with us being at Res, it might be fun to just kind of talk about some of the stuff that we've been playing here and some of the stuff that we like. I don't know where we want to kick it off here. You went to the BAFTAs last night, actually. That sounds like a fun thing. First question, is the BAFTAs just a bunch of game developers looking really swanky, getting quite drunk?
Yeah, it kind of is. It was actually kind of lovely. Like, there are a lot of people, you could kind of tell they don't wear tuxes very often, looking a little bit uncomfortable, but also a little bit pleased with themselves. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you do understand that, yeah. But it was a really fun night. I think there were quite a few surprises in terms of what games won. It was a really good night for indie titles. I mean, obviously, everybody's gone to the Rapture, and Her Story got quite a few
and Rocket
awards.
League as well. I think actually those 3 games all won 3 awards.
Yeah, Rocket League. I mean, I remember thinking beforehand, I really hope it wins Best Sports Game, because, I mean, it would just be so easy for FIFA to take that again. But Rocket League, it's something a little bit different, and I think it challenges what a sports game is, maybe, or what people's perception of a sports game is. It can be a game about cars and hats. Yeah, why the hell not?
Rocket cars and football.
Yeah, badass. I love it.
It's weird because that game should have it's not a surprise that it was a huge success because Rocket cars and football is just a really fun thing. I went to a talk at GDC in which they were like, yeah, we made this game 5 years ago or something, and no one really bought it, and we got a 69 on Metacritic.
Yeah.
So, all right, okay, maybe Rocket League.
It have a really, really long, complicated name that I can never quite remember.
It's supersonic, acrobatic,
something action cars.
Something battle cars.
Yes.
It's battle cars. It definitely ends with, and yeah, maybe just calling it Rocket League.
Yeah.
Maybe that helps
the
them
trick
out.
there.
Yeah.
20 points on your Metacritic right there.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it works. So, yeah, you were interviewing winners after.
Yeah, it was really exciting. So every time the winners came off the stage, then they would be shuffled towards our very exclusive winners sofa, towing their BAFTA and their gold envelope, and still a little bit shell shocked from what happened for the
Unless
most part.
you're Her Story, Rocket League, or
oh yeah, they by the end of it they were like
another one,
Jesus. Again. But it was just really cool to kind of share their moment as well. Merle, who won the best performer, she's awesome. She's really cool. Voice of Alex Vance. She was just a joy to talk to, and I caught up with her later at the photo booth in the after party, and she was like, I love this place, you guys are awesome. I was like, yeah, we are.
That's cool.
Her acceptance speech was so genuinely excited,
Yeah,
and
right?
upbeat and awesome. I really loved that.
Everyone else came into the room, and they were kind of because we were on such a tight schedule, people were being shuffled in and out and everything. So they would wait for our cue for us to start chatting. She was just like, I just want to cry. There was no controlling her. It was fantastic.
I get that. Imagine being able to text your mum and being like, just won a BAFTA.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know, it's cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw Fallout 4 won Best Game as well, right?
Yeah.
Where's XCOM 2 on that list, by the way? There's no love for Firaxis.
It's last year, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah, but it's since the last BAFTAs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Isn't that how that works?
I believe so.
I can't remember the dates.
Rocket League was a while ago. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to things that are actually going on at Res right now. Who wants to kick off with something cool they played? I played some really cool things today, actually.
What did you play?
I want to start with Giant Cop. Have you seen this?
Oh my god.
I saw the sign for
It's
it.
so good. It's such a good thing. So the concept is amazing anyway. You play a giant cop in a city arresting tiny criminals that really haven't done an awful lot wrong. I think there's actually a meta story about the giant cop kind of succumbing to power. I don't know.
Yeah, they kind of hinted that there'd be something like that.
Yeah, you're a giant cop in a city, and they had this at EGX, actually. Man, staying on brand. Got it. And back then, you played it with a controller, so it's an amazing concept, giant cop in a city, but it was with a controller, and it just felt like it was sort of missing just something to be like, get really excited about. Turns out HTC Vive actually having hands of a giant cop, reaching down, peering at people, looking at people, like, are you a criminal? And then throwing that, you have to throw the criminals into jail.
Chris is a really rubbish throw, as it turns out.
I didn't know my own strength. I was the giant cop. It's sort of in the name. Yeah, and like you pick up cars, and it's just really fun. There's something, particularly with the Vive, I've noticed. I think we talked about this a little bit before. You know, in the demo that Valve did, the Aperture Science one, where you open a drawer and you see the little office of people working, right? Yeah, I remember you like losing your mind over that the first time you played the Vive. And it's the fact that it's like this sense of scale, and you can literally bend down and look at stuff and get closer to things.
Which Chris was doing, completely forgetting there was a crowd of people watching him. Right. He was like, Ben, you were doing really middle-aged man poses, like hands on hips, kind of going.
The headset wasn't quite tight enough, so it was a bit blurry. So I was actually having to. Oh God, I was a middle-aged man. That was it.
People do that in VR though. It's noticeable. Like, once you get a little bit comfortable, once you played a few VR games, you start performing in the space because it feels fun. It feels fun to inhabit the role of the giant cop.
Oh God, yeah, stomping around and stuff.
But
does it pick it up if you're properly like? Because it's got the hand.
Yeah, the hands definitely. Yeah.
Is the meta story you mentioned, is that because they realised they'd made a game about being a gigantic fascist monster?
Yeah,
and how fun that is. And they were like,
I get the sense that that's how that happened. They're like, hang on, there's a metaphor somewhere here.
It didn't take long for him to become corrupt with power and just start picking up cars and be like, you're going to jail, you're going to jail, everybody's going to jail.
That was a real combo, actually. They were all criminals. I got three criminals in a row. So the thing about doing that demo this morning, and we had to do it like first thing because there's like a huge queue for that game. It's really cool. But we recorded it for a video, so I was mic'd up, and I had the game's audio on, right? So I could hear what was going on, and I was speaking quite loudly because it was for a video. And in the video, I'm sure that will be fine because it's got the game audio and everything. But yeah, to everyone that was standing around, and there was 4 people when I put the headset on, and there was a lot more than 4 people when I took it off.
There were.
I must have looked like such an obnoxious prick. It was awful. I was just, oh God. Yeah, that was the moment of shame. Which I wonder if there's something about VR with that, when you take the headset off and you realize there are other people watching you pretending to be a giant policeman and doing like this.
Giant cops have no shame. It's fine.
Yeah, but I do. I have lots of shame.
That's why you need to stay in Giant Cop City.
Never leave.
But yeah, you never have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think people should go and check that out if they haven't already. It's, like I say, it's a bit of a queue for it, but it's worth it. That is going to be a VR hit. If out of all the things I've seen, that's the one that really just impresses me, just because you feel massive. How about you guys? Have you played anything cool?
Ooh, we were talking about Overcooked just before we came in, which is a local multiplayer food preparation, like commercial kitchen simulator kind of thing.
Is that how they pitch it? Is that like the full description?
Obviously. And so what you're doing is little recipes pop up in the top left-hand corner of the screen. So it'll tell you to make tomato soup or, other things, tell you how many things you need. But you have to then take the tomatoes or whatever it is out of the tomato bin and then take them over to a chopping station and do the chopping and then put them into the thing and the soup pot and make sure that's on the stove and make sure it doesn't burn and then serve it up and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how exciting that sounds, but once you've got 4 people desperately trying to run around this kitchen, crashing into each other, sort of trying to work out maybe an optimal way to do it, but always never quite getting it right. Yeah. And then suddenly realizing, we have to do washing up. That was actually really fun.
Did you play with strangers?
I did. That's the thing that I was like, I kind of wished that I'd had a posse. Right. I believe.
An overcooked posse.
A posse of people, so that I could have plugged the 3 strangers who I'm sure are lovely people, but with people that I know and who I could kind of either try and actively wind up by moving things that they didn't want moved, or by working together and sort of having
both valid options in that game. I think that is actually the 2 ways to play.
Or having more of that sort of back and forth. As it was, we didn't really have that much communication because I think everyone was a bit self-conscious. And someone was saying, "I've worked in a kitchen, and this isn't how you really do it."
Whoa!
In a kind of jokey way, but I was kind of like.
But there was a little bit of snark in the
local multiplayer game is not realistic.
Yeah.
But, and then, like, we set the soup on fire. So, and then the kitchen caught fire, and then, like, there was a whole, like, work surface that was burning down, and then we got 3 stars because it was the tutorial.
Yeah.
Chris and I played it with Christian Donlan and one of the developers because they brought it into the Eurogamer office not that long ago. I think Christian Donlan was probably the most fun person you could have possibly played that game with.
Donlan is one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Was he apologising the whole way around? Like, sorry for bumping into you.
No, I think I was getting really aggressive.
You were getting aggressive.
In any kind of game, Christian is a total, he's an agent of chaos, basically. Never play Dungeons and Dragons with Christian because it will just go completely haywire.
Okay, I will never play Viscera cleanup detail with that man then.
No, you don't want to do it.
My bucket.
Yeah, these shows are amazing for local multiplayer games. Like, there's a bunch of them here. Like, Gang Beasts is always a massive hit at EGX. It's got its own room now. It's a proper big deal.
Which is always packed every time I walk past.
That game has always been like that. They've got Overcooked. We played a bit of Worms earlier. Worms has come back. Actually, no, it never left. Worms has just like been a constant in video games.
Really, I've got the emails going back 20 years to prove it.
But WMD is actually, if I haven't played a couple of iterations, but it was really fun. Like, it's got a whole new art style that looks really pretty. It's got buildings that you can actually go inside and hide from other people. It's got tanks and helicopters, and it's also just a Worms game.
Can you still throw sheep at people, though?
You can still totally throw sheep at people.
Okay.
And yeah, like, just watching local multiplayer games is just amazing here. What was the one that we played? Oh my God, Heads, is it?
Oh yeah. No, that was you and Johnny did that, but didn't he take the piss out of you because you were getting the name wrong?
we had a tough time with that. Our team didn't win very much.
Johnny,
we were
what was the name of that game?
Oh my God, Heads.
There you go.
Oh my God.
Heads.
That's an easy mistake to make. All right, it's fine. Anyway, that game looks cool as well. Local multiplayer games, they're excellent at these things. Yeah, Overcooked is definitely up there.
It's so much fun, and it gets more complex in later levels. I don't know if you played it, but so you get the easier ones where you're all in the one kitchen, but later on you're on 2 food trucks that will be together, but like, essential parts of the kitchen are on either one, and then they'll like drive apart and then come back together again.
So I was watching a group of 4 people who obviously had known each other beforehand, and they were trying to do the one where you're sort of manning a ship's galley. And so every time the ship tips to one side, some of the counters move, and so you can now not access parts of the kitchen for like some people, and you then have to all like switch up the jobs that you were doing, and they actually did really well, but like, I think challenge accepted. I really want to just get on with that one, I think.
I think that game benefits so much from playing with people. I think you need to be able to shout at each other. You need to feel comfortable enough to be able to shout at other people for being rubbish at making tomato soup. That is the key to that game.
Or if you're Chris Bratt, just demand everyone else become a potwash, and then you'll just man everything else.
Were you a kitchen tyrant?
He was a kitchen tyrant. He absolutely was.
Yeah, that's not a
problem. Who left all these beef patties lying around, for God's sake?
Okay, that was, but that's people leaving beef patties, raw beef patties on a kitchen counter. That's just unacceptable.
To me?
It's unsanitary.
Because Ethan's definitely not on my side right now. How about you, Oli? What have you been up to?
I'm going to cheat and mention a game that I actually saw at GDC a couple of weeks ago, but which I know is downstairs. Okay. And I'm afraid going to bring up Solitaire again, which if you listen to our special EGX podcast from 6 months ago, I went on about how much I loved a game called Regency Solitaire.
No, you didn't just say how much you loved it. It was that the theme of that podcast was the best games of the year, and you're like, yep, Regency Solitaire, obviously.
Did you guys put it in your best games of the year? Because we totally did. Me and Adam totally clubbed together, and we're just like,
we had a unsung games category. So my website, my rules.
Yeah. Nice.
So Regency Solitaire is an old school casual PC game, like from the sort of Big Fish platform, where you play. It's Jane Austen themed, and you play through like a Jane Austen story and clear solitaire decks. It's really soothing and decorous, and I like it. The developers, husband and wife team, called Grey Alien Games, have decided to break out, and they're going to go for the Steam market for their next game. But they're not really leaving behind what they did before. So they're making a game called Shadow Hand, which is still about basically nice, soothing puzzle gameplay of clearing solitaire decks, but they're turning it into a bit more of an adventure. There's a versus mode which plays a bit like Puzzle Quest, where you and an opponent, an AI opponent, take turns to play a few solitaire hands and try and clear more of the layout than your opponent. And then you're doing damage to each other, and there's collectible cards that you can play, and there's loot that you can collect. And if you combine solitaire and loot, I'm done, basically.
Oh, no, those are your two favorite things.
See, I was asking them about whether they would have like a multiplayer mode, because that's the one where I get like you got in the kitchen, where I'm just like, right, come at me. This is my game. We're in the zone kind of thing. And I think that's like a thing that they're going to look at like later. Yeah. So I'm still very much like, okay, this is practice for my e-sport. This is my time to shine.
Solitaire.
Own it.
So yeah, no, I really liked it. At first glance, I'm a bit worried that people are going to look at it and think another card battler, another Hearthstone clone. But it's actually, that's not. It's Puzzle Quest or something like Might and Magic Clash of Heroes is a better comparison. It's taking a puzzle game mechanic and then making an RPG and a bit of a combat system out of it. And since I loved Regency Solitaire so much, I'm really, really looking forward to that. I've played it a bit. I've chatted to the dev.
Yeah,
and he's got a really interesting story as well.
You fell in love with that man.
Yeah. Well, he's just an insane history buff, and he makes his games set in periods of history where. So he's a coin collector as well, and he has
the Regency Solitaire dev has to be a coin collector.
So when he's making a game set in the Regency period, he goes and fetches one of his coins from the Regency period and has it on his desk so he can finger it.
Oh my god, that is so nerdy! I love it. That's really cool.
No, so he's interesting because he worked in casual PC games for a really long time, and most of people from that market went into mobile gaming. Mm-hmm. But he never liked it because he didn't like the business model, and he didn't like the way the app stores were set up, and he just didn't feel like it was a healthy environment for game development. And I kind of agree with him. But in the end, he tried last year putting Regency Solitaire on Steam. It's not really the right sort of game for that market, but he had a little bit of success, and now he's thinking, well, now if I try and make a game that's still my game, still a casual solitaire game, but a bit aimed at a gamer, let's see if we can make something happen on Steam.
The name is cooler than Regency Solitaire.
It's all about a highway woman as well.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
just
it's got
a
cool,
theme.
really amazing artwork around this as well.
Yeah, it's kind of.
That's
it feels
my pick.
swashbuckling.
Yeah,
it's like the word that keeps coming to mind every time I see it.
Yeah, maybe that's an easier sell than a Jane Austen novel meets Solitaire. Maybe not. I don't know.
I have like too many hours on Regency Solitaire.
Okay, fair enough. I think like the biggest thing here seems to be the PlayStation VR stand, right? Is anyone? You played the demos that are being shown. Right?
Yeah, I played some of them at GDC.
Okay.
What demos are being shown? I've played some PlayStation VR demos before, but I don't know.
So there's Rigs, which is Guerrilla's mech combat game. There's Playroom VR, which is superb. You
didn't really talk about that too much in the podcast we did at GDC. So you want to,
Yeah. So Playroom VR is really exciting. It's basically Nintendo Land for VR. The idea of it is you've got one player in a VR headset and another set of players, I think you can have up to 3 or maybe even 4, playing on the TV.
Right.
And this is a tech that they've only recently built into the SDK, and it's made possible by the little external processor that the PlayStation VR has.
What you're is different than what the person...
It's a completely separate view. Obviously, it's
is that the first VR headset that can do that? Or that is doing
it? In theory, I mean, because the others are open PC platforms, so you can make them do whatever you want.
Yeah,
but
sure.
This is actually built into the SDK,
right.
And Sony is supporting it. Obviously, it's quite challenging because the PlayStation is having to generate 3 views on the scene at, whatever it is, 90 frames a second.
Right.
So it's not a graphically exciting game. It's a party game.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of doing a party game with a VR headset is, I think, just in itself a brilliantly sort of contradictory and hilarious. And so you have a game where, for example, the VR player is a cat and he's hiding behind a curtain, and the other players are mice and they're running around trying to hoover up bits of cheese. And the VR player is trying to catch them moving. It's statues, basically. So when you're the VR player, you lean out from behind the curtain and try and catch the mice moving. But if they all stop in time, then they hide under like Coke cans and stuff, and then you can carry them on. It's just really simple, really stupid. It's absolutely hilarious. And it's made more hilarious by the fact that with the head tracking the VR headset has, the cat that the other players can see on the TV screen is moving like you're moving. They take your voice from the VR headset mic and turn it into like a cat voice on the TV.
Of course they do.
It is really, really fun. There's a whole bunch of other games like that. If you've played Nintendo Land, you know what to expect. Little mini games playing around with the idea that one person has one view on the gameplay and that everybody else has a different view.
So is that going to be released? Or
It's a free download with every PlayStation VR headset, which is a stroke of genius on Sony's part because it's an inherently social game. It's really fun. It gets everybody else in the house involved when you bought your PlayStation VR. It really sells the idea of VR as a thing that's like a thing for everybody to do together in the living room rather than being a sort of solitary pursuit for you to hide in your bedroom and disappear off into virtual worlds.
That is a big concern as well. If recently Dota 2 showed like a new spectator mode, which looks amazing, right?
Yes.
It's amazing. You like sit in front of this big theater screen and like the heroes that are being used are like flanking you, and you can look at them.
You've got the map almost like you're on the Starship Enterprise,
and
it's
graphs
like
that come up, and it's so cool. But is it not going to be a bit lonely? You know, like the part of the enjoyment of watching things like that.
I don't understand.
No, come on, bear with me here.
Let me disappear into my Dota cave.
Like you want to talk about what's just happened. Not necessarily on Twitch
like,
yet.
I wonder whether, because I usually, when I'm watching not when I'm always watching matches, but one of the things I do like is having a bunch of people on Skype with me, and then we can just, actually sit and go, oh, that was amazing, or, you actually sort of do get something out of hearing other people react. And when you're on your own, it isn't quite the same. So it would kind of be interesting if you had a sense of maybe other people there, or some kind of
just think across like the whole platform. It's a difficult thing for them to manage because the whole thing is it's immersive. That's like the point of virtual reality, and that you believe you're a giant cop stomping around in a city, and you talk obnoxiously and look like an idiot. But how do you do that and also have other people engaging with you and talking?
You have to have the social screen, and this is Sony's absolute stroke of genius. And we were just talking about it on the VR panel that I was just on before this one. Is that they've built it into the system so that even if you're not doing a separate screen like in the Playroom VR, there will always be a display of what the VR player is viewing on the TV screen. So anybody else who wanders into the room is included in their experience, the way they would be if they wandered into the room and you're playing a normal game. I think that's absolutely crucial, because it means that you also feel reassured as the VR player, because you know that somebody else can come in and they can go, oh, you're playing a space game. You're not just standing in the center of the room sort of twitching weirdly. So it just makes sense of it, and it brings it back out in the room and includes other people in the experience. I think it's really important, and I think it's something that, particularly for PlayStation, obviously, because they're going to be in the living room rather than off in people's dens or offices or, custom Vive spaces that they built in their garages. Obviously, there's like an appeal to that as well, to disappearing into your cave and going somewhere completely different. But I think Sony have really hit on something there, and I think it's something the rest of the industry is going to have to catch up with really quickly.
Yeah. Mate, what if you were watching those two and like you could get other people that were using their Vive or whatever to hang out in the same space? Maybe that's cool. Oh, that's creepy though.
That is
creepy.
Right.
Yeah, I realized that halfway through the sentence.
But the thing is, I thought you were gonna have read my mind, but then I realized that was gonna be weird, because what I was actually thinking about was, this will make cosplay so much easier because the computer can just do it for me. Okay. And I could actually have the Witch Doctor cosmetic where the monkey is sat on my shoulder throwing coconuts at things.
Amazing.
That's where my brain is at right now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. We're on different planes. That's cool.
You want to hang out with other people.
Yeah,
I just want a monkey.
You want a virtual monkey friend. Okay.
You just want a monkey on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, that's reasonable.
But
what if your head clips through the monkey and you sort of accidentally see inside it?
Oh,
because that will happen.
This is the whole thing around VR right now. It's got to the stage where people have just kind of got over the oh my god, VR is the best thing ever. How cool is this? Come and stomp around in this game or whatever. And we're sort of getting to the stage where it's yeah, but what if we try and break it? I remember the first time I played the Aperture Science demo, the one in the laboratory, and at one point, the walls go away and the floor disappears beneath you, and I remember stepping back physically and being whoa,
I did
don't want to fall down there.
I was whoa, it really sort of makes you feel like you're physically threatened a little bit when it starts moving.
But now I'm at the stage where I'm yeah, but what if I just do it? What does the game do with the fact that I'm now standing
in midair
where there's no floor? Or there's been a recent some amazing
just step
gifts.
off that Everest one. You're just
Exactly. I actually, what happens? Are you just hovering in the? I guess
nothing up. You're just like standing over the edge. So the simulation of climbing Everest, or the thing that they've done where they're recreating bits of or trying to recreate bits of the experience. On some of them, you're sort of like picking your way along a really thin ledge. Yeah. And so you'll see people like really just like freaking out and going really, really slowly and stuff if you're watching them play. But like you do get some people who are just like stepping to the side or like leaping up into the thing, but you just
some men just want to watch the world.
And developers say very, very few people actually do that.
Yeah.
And that
you have a really,
really
that's the thing,
strong,
because they're all being wowed by this is like the first time I've used the Vive, isn't it amazing? And then you start mucking around with it. This Giant Bomb did like a really cool like representation of this, where they were playing a driving game, I forgot what it's called, and they're like in the driving seat, and like you look down, you've got a body, and it's like, oh, this is awesome, I'm driving a car. And then they got the person that was playing it to stand up, and that meant that their head went straight through the roof of the car, which is funny enough in itself. And you're like, now, basically it's like a different camera angle. You're like at the top of the car and you can still play it. And then they had him step to the right, and now that's a bit weird. They had him sit down, and they're in the passenger seat, and it was like, oh, this is really funny, and now I'm driving from the passenger seat.
Could he get outside of the car?
No, then they looked to the left, and the driver, it was just a body without a head. And he freaked out, and it was amazing. And I think that's what I'm into now in VR. It's like seeing like what happens when you try and break the game really badly, like the most ridiculous situations you can make. Clip through walls, do everything.
But it is interesting what Oli was saying, because your body does resist it.
It does,
like even if you know you're perfectly safe, you are kind of like.
There's those clips of people, the VR where you're walking a tightrope, or you're on the ledge of a really tall building.
The one where you're trying to save a cat.
Well, I'm not sure. No, I think this might have been like a promotional thing for a film almost.
I think it's for the climb, isn't it, or the walk, or something.
Yeah,
a tightrope.
Yeah, but like, so there was a promotional thing, and this guy was doing it, but someone came up behind him and like pushed him. And the guy just like collapses, his body just goes, like just doesn't know what to do. It's Jesus. It's proper, like you can't resist but react to it.
Sounds amazing. Oh God, that's reason enough to have a VR headset to be able to do that to other people.
Well, I definitely would do it, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Any other cool games you played? I feel like I'm going to end up talking about Total War Warhammer again, which is like a thing that
Should
happens every
we
time.
take some questions to avoid that eventually?
Quite possibly. Although, Pip, have you got something to...
Oh, I was just saying, I really liked, there's a game called, is it The Earth is Flat? And I just really liked it because the controller is actually a giant exercise ball against like some mice, like the trackballs of some mice, and you just sort of
Is that how it works?
Yeah, and it's like they're held in place by elastic bands.
Oh, this is
and
awesome.
So
That's
you're just
really
like
clever.
rotating the ball to find all these different countries on a screen. So you're sort of physically moving a globe-shaped object to just locate the countries as they come up on the screen. It's like a score attack.
That sounds amazing,
really
but the thing that I'm most impressed by is the fact that it's two mice balls and elastic bands.
That's
how they made it work.
Mice ball.
Where
I
are the
wasn't
mice?
sure what to
Where
do
are
there.
the
I
mice
just went
balls?
with mice.
Are they on the gloves?
So, like, it's got like a wooden stand, and then it's got like I think maybe 3 just regular mice that have like a trackball thing
on the stand.
And they're held in place by like elastic bands, so there's a bit of give and stuff.
That's
and then
so
the ball
awesome.
is plonked on top. Your screen's here, and then you're just like.
It's very clever.
That's obviously going to translate really well to a podcast.
That's great. Yeah, the audio version of this is
I
going to be
know, right?
amazing. All right, cool. Yeah. Do you want to take some questions?
Yeah.
Then? Shall we?
Sure.
All right,
If we
cool.
have to.
I think there's a microphone here. I think it's just that one. If anyone would like to stand up, oh God, it's always. Oh no, come on, this guy. There we are.
Yes.
And we started.
What are your opinions about Total War Warhammer?
Excellent question, my friend. There we are. All right. So the thing is, right, that game continues to just absolutely blow me away. I'm going to go with it. I was asked the question, Oli. And yeah, so with Total War, everyone keeps talking about Rome 2. It had a dodgy launch after like blowing up all the pre-order like records ever, and it launched with a bunch of technical issues. The AI never really quite worked, and I feel like there's an expectation that's going to happen with Total War Warhammer. Total Warhammer, I'm just going to say it. But it's the same engine. They've been working on it. They fixed Rome 2 pretty much like over the course of a year. They made another game, and now Warhammer is on that engine as well, and it works really, really well. Also, it's Warhammer and Total War, which are like the two franchises that were always meant to be together. So in answer to that question, it's pretty good. I'm looking forward to the full release, which is like 19th, is it? Something like that? It's on the same day as Overwatch.
Yeah.
That's not
God,
cool.
that's going to be a good day for you.
Oh, no, it's going to be the most conflicting day of my life. I wouldn't know what to do. Like, the Overwatch is... Like,
you need to add me on Overwatch so I have more people to play with.
Yeah? All right, okay. I'll do that.
Sorry, that was...
No, we should totally do that. All right, do we have any more questions? There we are. If people want to, ask other questions, they can queue up behind. Thank you.
What is the most flawed game you've seen here today, but the one you most want to succeed?
I
think we've got the same answer, don't we? So the first thing this morning, actually after Giant Cop, Chris and I went to see Deceit, which is the online multiplayer horror game, I guess.
Wait, is it online as well? I guess it's got to be. Yeah, but the setup they had was like
it was
9 people
local
in a
when we
room.
were playing it, but I got a sense that it was probably online as well. So basically, everyone is, I think it's like in a hospital or an asylum.
I think it's an asylum,
something like that, something that you would expect. But so everyone has to basically escape the hospital and get up onto the roof.
Okay.
But half, or maybe even a third of the people playing are actually infected. And when the lights all go out, they turn into these big terrors, which are kind of a little bit lame looking. But so they can take out the other players when nobody's watching, or even if they are. But if they're supposed to not let anyone know that they are the terrors, essentially. But so it sounds like a great game conceptually, but it was just very, very rough around the edges, wasn't it? We were actually capturing it because we wanted to make a video, but I was one of the terrors and trying to convince Johnny that I was not one of the terrors. Yeah, that was quite fun. But it just, every time I went for another player, when the lights went out, the game just glitched. It just didn't know what to do, and I fell through the floor. And then one of the other terrors was coming towards me on skates, which kind of negated the fear of it a little bit. It was just going, like coming down the corridor. That's terrifying. Yeah, I think the concept behind that's really cool. 9 players. 3 of them are the bad guys.
Like
don't know.
Werewolf, if it
was
a
kind of,
deathmatch.
Yeah. There was the one thing that I did really like about the setup they've got is that it's being played in a dark room, because of course it is. And when it goes to nighttime within each round, and the people that are the terrors show themselves. Yeah. Your screen goes red, and I don't know if you noticed this because you were playing and I was watching you guys, but at one point you and Johnny both became terrors, the only terrors in the group that were still alive, really? I think, and your faces were bathed in the color red, and it was terrifying, whilst everyone else was scampering around you, and you were both grinning and just looked even within that room, you looked properly evil. It was just, you could tell it was very, very early days with it. Even just the fact that every player looked exactly alike, and that they were just a bald man in pants, and which kind of negated the terror a little bit as well. But yeah, it's a cool idea though. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Question.
Hello. So I played PSVR for the first time earlier, and I thought it was really, really awesome. But I have one thought in my head that's sort of a drawback, in that everything's this 10-minute demo, and I can't really see how it can become a experience where you're sitting there for 5 hours and oh my god, this is amazing, getting side quests and something I don't know, a big AAA game like Witcher or something like that. And so I'm just wondering whether you can actually see PSVR as being a bit similar to the Move, 3D in games and stuff, whether you see it as a gimmick or whether it can actually be the next big thing in gaming.
I don't think short gameplay experiences have to be gimmick gameplay experiences. I don't think that's necessarily follows. I've said on the site before, I think that at the moment anyway, VR's strength it reminds me of arcade games in the 80s and 90s, where you had these fabulous cabs with these huge screens. They would really involve you, and you would be really physically involved in the game. And that's what it reminds me of. And I think for the moment with VR, that's okay. And I think actually short session stuff is going to work well, because after a little while you want to pull the headset off and go, "Ooh, wow, that was amazing, that was intense." But I think it really depends a lot on the kind of game that you're going to do. I think first-person games for long play sessions, which is the easiest analog to the kind of games we play at home now, what would Fallout 4 be like in VR? That's not going to be fun. Mm-hmm. But a strategy game in VR, where you're just looking down over the playfield, and you can move items around. If it was a fairly slow-paced game, and if you're not actually moving around, so you've got no motion sickness, there's no reason why you wouldn't enjoy playing that sort of game for hours. You've just got a slightly different viewpoint on it. So it's going to depend on the kind of experiences. But like the kind of stuff that we're used to playing for long play sessions on TVs, flat games, as one of the VR developers I was just talking to is now called it. It's the new thing.
That's so cool.
I don't think that's going to transpose, but I think there will be other stuff that does. But I also think that short play session stuff can be really fun. Like if people can come up with good arcade game mechanics, like Wii Sports is a brilliant game. And there weren't enough games of that quality to come out with motion control. I am hoping VR is going to be different, but who knows?
What's the longest you guys have played a VR game for? Like, I know you actually had like some mega session at GDC, which was like an entire day of
I played a lot of
VR games.
I haven't played a single game for more than half an hour.
Me neither.
I think probably 10 minutes is my cap.
Right.
Like I just think, everything I've played has been single room sort of setting, and
often like tech demo kind of things,
well,
right?
exactly,
like
yeah.
I haven't played that many VR games with a sense of a narrative to
And
them,
in that
unless they
sense-
finish early.
Yeah,
There
in
are
that sense, I totally agree with you. I can't really picture anything outside of that, like lasting like much longer yet, because I think mobility, like in the way that we know it from games, it just won't transfer well. So that is why you can't really lift that concept and put it straight into VR. VR kind of has to follow a different path, I
I
think.
think there are some experiences that I had at GDC that I can imagine sort of sinking into for those longer periods of time, like watching one of my colleagues play Fantastic Contraption. I can imagine sort of like tinkering with that kind of thing for a long period of time, as long as I don't get headachy or anything. And then there's other things like
Google
Elite
Tilt Brush
that
as well,
I can
actually.
imagine.
I
Yeah,
believe saying something like that.
but like stuff like Elite, when you're just sort of like doing something and sort of concentrating, but sort of in that drifty kind of, I'll do, I'm not explaining it very well, but you know what I mean, that kind of different state of play that's not constantly active, not constantly moving. I think that those kinds of things will probably end up being where I spend a lot of time. And also at the Oculus Rift demo day thing, did you play the sports thing?
Tennis one?
No, the one where you were, because there was a mini game in that where you were throwing basketballs into a hoop. So stuff like that, where I can imagine it being a long time but made up of little bursts of trying to beat a high score as well. Like I can imagine that.
Yeah,
being
the archery game on Vive is, there's enough skill to actually just playing it that you could get quite absorbed, even though it's a very simple game. But I mean, in answer to your question, there is a real risk that we're going to end up with a Kinect-style gimmick situation. It depends on the games. But I think what I feel is different is I think there's a lot more genuine excitement out there in the development community about making new stuff for VR. And with PlayStation VR, that's going to sell quite quickly. It's going to be a big commercial product with a big marketing campaign behind it. And there's a risk there that if the games aren't there in a couple of years' time, but with Vive and Rift, I think you're going to see a big groundswell of community support and developers having a bit more room to experiment, and you'll see some amazing stuff come out.
We're already seeing that, actually, with both of those.
Yeah, well, I spoke to John Carmack last night when he won the fellowship.
Did you understand anything he said? Because I didn't when
His tweets are amazing.
He's very clipped, isn't he? No, but he basically said the exact same thing. He's obviously gone all in on the VR thing, and he was like, it's our job kind of to get the community invested and excited about VR, because obviously, like he was saying, where we're at now with the kind of games that we all play, like Fallout, whatever. He says like we've kind of reached a plateau, and now any idea that people have in that sphere is doable. So VR is kind of represents a new challenge that a lot of developers
not following the rules of the flat games anymore.
Right. And it also feels like developers are sort of more interested or more galvanized to solve the problems of implementation in a way, because it is such a different environment, whereas the Kinect was maybe more of a kind of, certainly in regard to games, was more of a, and we can add this support, or we can maybe
Mass Effect
actually
3 with voice commands.
A byproduct of VR is that it is going to fix motion control as well.
Yeah.
Motion control in VR is already, like on the Vive controllers or on the Oculus Touch controllers, is already so much better than what and even Move, where like playing a sports game on Move when you're on the TV, there's a disconnect there, but when you're doing it in PlayStation VR, it just feels more natural.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Yeah. Sorry, we made you stand.
Thanks very much.
That was a really great question, though. Thank you so much.
Hi. Ollie, hopefully you remember the old segment from the podcast, Desert Island Discs. I was wondering if you guys had to pick one game from the show to play for the rest of your life while stuck on a desert island, what would you go for?
I know what your answer is going to be.
I don't think you do. It's Crusader Kings 2. That is the game that I have been playing constantly for since 2012.
Was that here at the show, though? Your questions are going.
Sorry.
Oh, at the show. Oh, right.
Let's say Total Warhammer.
Then Total Warhammer. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Sorry, you knew what my answer was. I take it back. How about you guys?
Dark Souls 3 for me.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good one.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like
a challenge.
That's going to be a stressful.
Keep me going for a while. Yeah,
Okay.
I like stress.
All right.
Are there any Dota booths?
What?
No, what about World of Warcraft? Is that no?
Oh my god.
Do we have a World of Warcraft section?
I think, I'm going to go Shadowhand because I can play Solitaire indefinitely. In fact, I've got, if you look at the playtime records on my phone, Solitaire, they are in the many hundreds of hours. So
God.
Shadowhand will keep me going.
Are you going to go with the new spectator mode for Dota 2 set in VR?
That would be good.
I could totally see that.
I don't know actually. I feel like I haven't because I played a lot of cool stuff today, but it was like the Burly Men at Sea thing. Was it's gorgeous and it's so beautifully designed and illustrated, and it's got a lovely sort of light touch sense of humor. But obviously, it's a story, and I'm just keen to sort of see it play out in the kind of way that when you're a kid, you get excited about a really beautiful kids book and stuff. And so that's obviously not a kind of rest of my life kind of situation.
It's a pretty big question, isn't it, right?
I know. Are we going to be held to this? Is this enforced?
I think you're right.
But yeah, so I'm just going to...
You're going to fade out of the question.
No, next question.
All right, okay, cool.
Whatever game here has the most loot, I'll play that one.
Thank you.
Fair.
Oh, no.
Hello, Johnny Chiodini. You right?
Hi, I don't know what Oh No is about. Let's assume for the sake of argument that you are effectively the UN and money is no object.
Right.
I am going somewhere with this. Which VR headset are you going to invest in and why?
The Vive has ruined all of the others for me a little bit.
Well,
Being able to move
If
around.
money's no
and
object, it's if I can have a ridiculous PC and an entire room dedicated to it, then Vive.
I didn't say anything about space being no object, but yes, fine.
Well, if money's no object, I can buy space.
Fine.
Yeah, I think honestly, every time I played with the other VR headsets and don't have the option to move around and pick things up and peer down and really move, I don't know. I just kind of miss the Vive a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's the one for me.
I think it started to be sort of the one that I was fond of because I'd had a couple of, oh gosh, I feel really ill after I'd played on the Rift a couple of times, and I have no idea whether that was the technology or whether it was the specific game that I was playing, but at the back of my mind it kind of became a little bit of a stumbling block for VR. And then I played the Secret Shop demo at the International and but also Tilt Brush and the Blue and stuff like that, and that was it was such a different experience, and it didn't feel as claustrophobic, if that's the right term for something that's slightly
Virtual.
less on top of your head and in your face as anything that is on top of your head and in your face could be.
Yeah.
I guess.
I like the Vive we've had set up in the office, and we've had everyone's been mucking around with it, including people that don't play games. People's families have come in just to show their kids how it works.
It has destroyed the FIFA room. So we had a room in our office that has been. Nothing has happened in that room apart from FIFA for
Rocket League made to dent.
For until last year, nothing. Yeah. It was FIFA, solid FIFA for about 5 years, and then last year it turned into the Rocket League room.
Yeah.
And we set up Vive in there because it's the only place where we've got enough space in the office to actually get a Vive set up, and it hasn't been taken down. A, because it's a bit of a pain to take down a Vive setup.
Pretty sure I'm supposed to take it down.
Everybody really, really wants to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the new demos keep coming as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, money, no object Vive, but real world PlayStation VR, because I can plug it in, it will work. Apparently this is true of Rift as well if you've got a minimum spec PC, which is impressive, but it's in the living room where I've got space to stand up in front of the TV if that suits the game. And it's got the social screen thing, which I really think, in terms of actually VR working in terms of normal human relationships, is huge. So yeah, if I'm the UN, the rich UN, I will buy a Vive and a new house to put it in. But yeah, if I'm me, I'd get a PlayStation VR.
Fair enough. Thanks, Johnny. All right, cool. I think that wraps it up then. Thank you so much for joining us for this live podcast. Like I said, if you enjoyed this, you can find us on iTunes, a bunch of other places. And yeah, thank you. And thanks to everyone on the panel, Philippa Warr, Oli Welsh, and Aoife Wilson. You're all lovely. Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank you.
You can see the biggest developers live and play a huge range of unreleased games at EGX 2016 in Birmingham from the 22nd to the 25th of September. The UK's biggest games event is going even bigger this year, with more space and more screens to make it our best ever. Play this year's hits first, see developers live, and check out the spectacular cosplay stage, gigantic retro selection, plus sessions and talks on getting into the games industry.